Hello, everyone. My message to you right now is you are exactly who the world needs right now. I want to thank you for your courage and your leadership at such a crucial time in our world history. Your clients and your prospects need you. Your friends need you. And of course, your family needs you. Everybody needs you right now. This is the time, this is the moment for those of us in this business to metaphorically run to the sound of the gunshot. So congratulations for being that kind of a person. We really appreciate and admire you for that. The purpose of this online training is to avoid the biggest mistakes and really act on the best methods to have successful online meetings with prospects and clients. So we want to thank our partner Insurance WebX for continuing to bring you great ideas to help you serve your clients and grow your business. We appreciate them and we appreciate you. You'll notice that there is not an introduction. I'm just jumping right into the content. My name is Bill Backrack, if you don't already know who I am. And if you care to learn, there's a bio that's been posted in the chat area of the GoToWebinar control panel. Now, all the promises that we made in the promo for this complimentary training are going to be addressed by what I believe to be the key big mistakes that are commonly made when it comes to running any kind of an online meeting or a virtual meeting, depending on how you like to say it. And any one of these mistakes can be a total disaster. You have to avoid these mistakes at all costs. So particularly right now, when everybody's sort of running to do meetings online, people who may not have any experience, and you may be one of those, there are 7 critical mistakes, and I'm going to cover all 7 of them, and then I'll open up to questions. So if you have a question, what you do is you go to the GoToWebinar control panel, and you'll see there's a little questions bar. And what you do is you click on that questions bar, you open it up. If you have a technical question, Michael on my team will make sure you're taken care of. And then when I'm done with the content, Michael will serve up the questions that you're asking to me. And I'll show you how we do that as well, because that might be helpful for you. So right into it. Mistake number 1 is bad internet connection, right? And this can be a disaster for the video and the audio. So notice that you are able to look at my screen. I'm going to click between the video of me and my screen. Right now, you're just seeing the video of me. Well, you can imagine what a disaster it could be if you don't have enough bandwidth. And I have to tell you, this is the second time I've delivered this particular content, and I was prioritizing the mistakes. I had them listed, and I was sort of messing around with the order. What's really number 1? What's number 2? And then right before I was about to do this the first time last week, I thought to myself, the biggest fear that I have right now is the bandwidth in the internet. I'm actually concerned that the whole world is moving to online, and I don't know how much the network can actually handle. I mean, I'm surprised that the internet hasn't already crashed, right? I think it's a testament to the strength of these providers that we're up and running. So Netflix and YouTube have reduced their EU bandwidth, that's the European Union, by 25%, and I hope they do that here as well. So if your internet strength is weak, your image can become glitchy or blurred. The audio can become choppy. Your lips can become out of sync with your words. And that's not good. You don't want to be talking to a client or a prospect and have any of those things happen. So you want to test your speed. So I make it a priority to have great internet strength and speed at my home office. Right, so I've been working from home for a few years now. Our company went full virtual in the fall of 2018, and this is crucial. So let me show you something. I'll bring up my screen. All right, turn off my video and show you my screen. Now you can see my screen, and you'll see here under internet speed, right, just go to fast.com and you can do a speed check. Right, you may already be familiar with something like this. There are actually a few different services that you can use. But notice I've got smoking fast download speed, and my upload speed is strong. It's the best that I'm able to do where I live. So I've contracted with my internet service provider, and I have paid for the maximum that I can get to my house, and this is it. All right, so if I fire that up, and I check this probably 5 times a day. And it varies. Sometimes it's in the high 2s, sometimes it's in the low 2s. I pay for 200 and I'm getting that. Now, interestingly enough, I was paying for 200 for quite a while, and then I did something that you should do. I hired well, I already had a tech consultant, right? But I had them come to my house and I said, look, I don't know what we have to do, but I want to make sure that I have the best internet speed possible. I want the maximum speed and I want to make sure my equipment is state of the art, right? We replaced all of my equipment, the routers, everything. We replaced it all. And the reason that we did that is so that we could get maximum speed. So we replaced all of that, and now I have maximum speed. The reason I tell you that story is because it was interesting that I was paying for 200, but my router was throttling it back at only 100. So it was coming to the house at 200. It was being distributed at 100 because that's the max my router could handle. So I'm paying for 100. I was actually getting about 50 or 60 to my computers, and we fixed that. So take a look at my screen. I'll show you a couple of other things. The other thing that you should notice here is I'm not using Wi-Fi. All right, so I'm hardwired. And I would recommend that if you can, hardwired will probably produce faster speed for you as well. All right, so I can bring my camera up and now you can see me on the small screen and you can still see the big screen of my desktop basically showing for you. So take a look over here and I've got GoToMeeting open. I do have Zoom because you may have some questions about Zoom and I'll talk about that later, but everything else, I closed it all before this meeting. In fact, there's one more that I was on right before the meeting. I'll close that as well. All right, so I've closed all the programs except for what I'm going to use during this presentation. I've closed Pages and Word and Excel, even things like that. Certainly everything that could take up bandwidth. I also have the minimum number of tabs open. So every one of these tabs is open because it's something that I either plan to address or I might address during Q&A. So I've got Insurance WebX because that's this particular webinar. We thank them. I wanted to show you the internet speed, and I've got a few other tabs open that I'm going to bring up. All right, so it's very important that you do the maximum that you can do to get your highest possible bandwidth and that you understand what takes bandwidth and you're making smart decisions. All right, so VPN, right? So VPN is a bandwidth sucker, right? You don't want to have these meetings via VPN. So I'll say it again, hire the best tech person you can find to come to your home and pay whatever it costs to have the best possible equipment. I understand we're social distancing. So ask the right questions, wear a mask if you have to, have them wear a mask, disinfect everything, but you really have to have great bandwidth. So I prefer to do audio and video through my computer. And if your internet is weak, you could do the video through your computer and the audio through a telephone. All right, so I'm prepared. I have my phone right here. I have my headset right here. This is one of my backups. So I'm prepared that if I were to have a problem with my bandwidth, that I could go to my phone, and I have right here the dial-in instructions for this GoToWebinar. I'm not leaving it to chance. And this is actually one of the reasons why I have an old-fashioned hard line. I don't have a VoIP phone system because that's just going to consume more bandwidth. So if I'm having bandwidth problems, I've got a hard line. You could do the same perhaps if you have really strong cell coverage, but make sure you're using your cellular system and not your cell phone taking bandwidth with the internet. All right, so cannot overemphasize the importance of having good internet and strong bandwidth. Mistake number 2 is believing that you'll ever be able to accomplish the same personal, emotional connection and level of trust through a technology trust barrier like this than you can when you're face to face. So imagine the difference if you and I were sitting here together in my office and we were having this conversation one-on-one, right? Literally, you're just a few feet away from me. So this is my real office. If I became a financial advisor again, this is where I would meet with clients. I don't actually have a desk. I have a dining room table, right? So it's right here. Imagine you're sitting and we're having a conversation about being great at conducting online or virtual meetings, right? So there's a chemistry, there's a synergy, there's an emotional connection that happens much more effectively when people are physically in the same environment, breathing the same air, and have close physical proximity. But I understand that's not possible right now. So desperate times call for desperate measures. So during a pandemic, when people are literally being ordered to social distance and self-quarantine, and in some cases locked down, well, it makes sense to consider having some meetings online. But I'm the trust expert. All right. I wrote the first book on the art of building high trust client relationships for financial advisors. All right. I would never suggest that you want to permanently shift to having a fully virtual business where you do all or even most of your meetings online. It's safer with clients to have online meters. I'm sorry, it's safer with clients to have online meetings, but much more difficult with prospects. So remember, this is a trust business. So money, maybe more than anything other than health, is all about whether or not you're trusted. And everything you say and do moves the needle on the trust dial one direction or the other. And like it or not, technology like this is one more obstacle to building the level of trust that's necessary in order to rescue a client from their current financial advisor. As I said before, there is no possible way that you and I can have the same emotional connection through this barrier than we could have rather, if we were sitting in the same room together. All right, so establish the same level of trust in a meeting this way through this technology. Not possible than we could if we were in the same room together right now in my office. I'll say these words again: chemistry, synergy, an energy that can't transmit the same way this way that happens when human beings are actually together. So I think you could understand the sort of the formula for this, right? If advisor A and B are equally capable financial professionals and equally effective communicators, and advisor A meets with a prospect virtually, and advisor B meets with that same prospect face to face, advisor B will win the business, which brings up another key point. If you're not very effective at running a face-to-face meeting, then that lack of skill is likely to be magnified when you add the technology to run a distance meeting like this, especially if your target market are people who are more financially successful. All right, so that's our expertise. We train financial advisors how to build an ideal client community. These are people who are paying 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 a year for financial advice. And most high net worth people are over 50. And they may be agreeable to having some meetings online temporarily, but most of the people who are financially successful, especially when you're competing to acquire the client in the first place, are going to be much more easily and effectively and quickly able to deeply trust you when you're in the same room. So remember this: regardless of how old you are, you want to operate your business in a way that's most appealing to the people you want as clients, right? None of us say, well, I'm going to run my business the way I would like to be a client. You have to adapt and run your business the way that you would like to be a client. So it's a simple question. Do you want to be the financial advisor to people who have less money than you, the same amount of money as you, or more money than you? Right? So I did cover this in much more detail in the free online training. It's called Mastering Client Acquisition in the New World, this current world. So it's at least worth a brief mention today. If you want to watch that, we sent that to you in the chat box. All right. So if you go to this link and it's in the chat box, don't go there now. Go there later, but you can see that we've put up a page of lots of free resources. So we were very quick to this party. On March 19th, which was in the first week of all this crap hitting the fan, we put up our first Turn Coronavirus Lemons into Business Lemonade, and you can watch that replay. You just got an example of how great it is to be wireless, right? So it got a little stuffy in my office here, so I was able to stand up without taking a break in what I'm saying and open my door to get a little fresh air. All right, so you can see that we have some great resources for you there. They're all complimentary. Mastering Client Acquisition in the New World, much deeper dive in how to find high net worth prospects and turn them into ideal clients. And then this is the second time that we've run this particular training, and we will record this, and this actual training with this Q&A will be available to you. We'll send you a link to that, but it's also the last week's version of this, covering the same content, obviously different Q&A, is already available to you as a replay on the free resources page. We also have some downloads, some scripts of exactly what to say to prospects and clients right now, and some other resources that you and or your clients might find valuable. This is a 1 minute and 53-second video. Again, when we're done here, you gotta watch that video. This is a high net worth client talking about how her current financial advisor has already screwed up and how she plans to change financial advisors after, well, sort of soon after things calm down a little bit. All right, so this is a great time. As it says here under the quote, the battle for client acquisition doesn't start when the pandemic is over, it's already begun. All right, so let me also show you, I'll switch over to here. I just want to make the point, this is really key, that your target market are people over 50, or your target market is people over 50 because they have all the money. So I talk about this a lot. I've done a lot of research on this, but as I was preparing for this meeting, I thought, let's see if there's any new information. Has the world changed, and is somehow the money migrating to younger people when it's always been with older people, right? Well, no change. So all I searched for is I just Google searched, how old are most high net worth people? Now, I'm not talking about elephant. Notice I didn't say elephant hunting, rather. Notice I didn't say ultra high net worth. So high net worth people are defined as people with $2 to $20 or $25 million. And ultra high net worth are defined as people, I've seen it, 20 million and up or 25 million and up. All right, so we're not talking about elephant hunting here and going after, Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or Elon Musk or, some other ultra high net worth person. There are millions of people who have $1 to $20 million. And if they have $1 million, they're probably paying $10,000 a year for financial planning, advice, and wealth management. So look at this. This was stunning to me. All right, so Americans 75 and older are the only age group whose median net worth rose between 07 and 16, according to a Federal Reserve survey of consumer finances released in July of 2018. Americans aged 35 to 54, because their wealth was heavily concentrated in housing, which doesn't do you any good, right? If most of their money is in housing, unless you do mortgages, you're not being paid for that. All right, it dropped by 41% in that time frame. All right, so what is wealthy? Most Americans believe it takes 2.3 million in personal net worth to be considered wealthy. All right, so, and then I scroll down a little further, and I think this is the most important statistic to consider. As you're adapting to running meetings online, and you may be thinking, oh, I'll do this permanently. That could work better with clients, but it's going to work against you with prospects and acquiring clients in the first place. The average United States millionaire is 62 years old, all right? And I usually on my online trainings, because I have a global financial advisor training and coaching business, we have people from all over. Insurance WebX, I think their footprint is just in the United States, but the data is the same in Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, anywhere where I've worked. I've looked this up, and it's not uncommon because it takes time to accumulate money. So just 1% of millionaires are under age 35. 38% of millionaires are 65 and older. So that 50-year-old number is a good benchmark. I'll say it again, no matter how old you are, you've got to become effective and skilled at working with people who have the money. All right, so if you're 30, you don't want 30-year-olds as clients. All right, so there may be some 48-year-olds have money, but a good target is 50 years old and up. All right, so mistake number 3, poor command over the tools of the platform. As I said in the promo, it's not my plan to replace the tutorial that comes with whatever system you prefer to use. I'm very solid with this platform, GoToWebinar. I'm just as strong with Zoom, but I run 5 to 10 online meetings a day. right? So between one-on-one coaching and training, small group training and coaching, and broadcasting sometimes to many hundreds of advisors around the world, I can easily navigate between these two platforms. All right, so and with about 30 minutes of prep, I did a broadcast to the 75 leaders of a major financial services firm on Monday. They used WebX. Didn't take me long, although I'm not normally in WebX. I've used it enough. And because I have a proficiency, at least, with GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting, and Zoom, the controls are fairly similar. And I got dialed in quickly, and I was able to effectively present with WebEx as well. So the good online meeting tools have similar functions. They're just presented with different control panels, right? So you want to be able to show your screen, bring up your video, and things like that. So whatever you choose, consume whatever training they have and practice with your kids, your dog, your cat, your ferret, whatever it takes to get skilled. Now that said, don't overuse the cool features. Keep it simple. It sort of reminds me of a new PowerPoint user. You can always tell an amateur with PowerPoint because everything is flipping and spinning and exploding, massively overusing the features rather than just keeping it simple. All right? You're not trying to be slick, you're just trying to be effective. Now let's talk about Skype for a minute. So in fairness to Skype, I criticize them as the tool of amateurs in my promo piece for this online training. So I have to say, in fairness to Skype, it's been a while since I seriously looked at their capability. So if Skype is your tool and you're good at using it, fine. That said, I can tell you, I don't know a single pro who uses Skype for these meetings. And what about FaceTime? Well, FaceTime maybe for a relatively casual chat or check-in instead of a phone call, but you still want to be framed well, all right? So I'll talk in a few minutes about how you use the video and how you create good framing and what your background looks like. So FaceTime for casual check-ins and conversations, Zoom, GoToMeeting, and WebEx should probably be number one for your consideration. All right, moving right along to mistake number 4 is poor audio quality. All right, now, do you need one of these? Let me show my screen and I'll show you this microphone here. All right, so this is actually a friend of mine, and he does a lot of video and he does a lot of podcasting. And this is sort of a stock photo of him, and you can see that big ass honking podcast mic. All right, and there are a variety of these kinds of microphones, and I'll bet that's a $500 or a $600 microphone. And it probably makes sense for somebody like Damien, who really communicates a lot and does podcasts and things like that. But I have to tell you, I think for sort of you in contacting your existing clients, I really think that would be overkill. I think you would look kind of silly if you had that big of a microphone, right? So you'll notice what I'm using here. I'll point out a couple of things, and then I'll suggest what I think you should use. So again, I'm a pro. I'm a Hall of Fame keynote speaker. I do multiple day workshops every year. I work in a high-end training and coaching program, which is 6 days a quarter. So it makes sense for me to make this investment. This piece alone is $500, and the microphone sits there. It's relatively skin tone, and then I have my wireless transmitter and my wireless receiver, and I have probably a more sophisticated setup than would be normal. And I use that especially when I'm broadcasting to large numbers like I am now, and we're recording and we want the audio quality to be the maximum. Most of the time, though, however, for one-on-one, I use something as simple as this. Right, so these are Bose noise canceling earbuds. They're extraordinarily comfortable. You can tell I have a piece of tape on here because the wire is starting to come apart. I need to order a new pair. I've had these for a long time, but they're excellent. All right, so on-off switch for noise canceling. I like that, and then I feel really connected if we were having more of a conversation. Now I don't have them here though, just to demonstrate. This is my backup system. So if something were to happen, now I already put brand new batteries. These batteries were only a quarter empty when I took them out, but I put brand new batteries into my system because I don't want to take any chances on the batteries going dead. But if I have a problem with that mic system, then my teammate Michael is going to jump in. He's going to say, hey, Bill, we've got an audio problem. Bam, I'm going to switch this off. I'm going to put this on. I'm going to plug it in, and I know what to do. Or I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to dial in, or I'm going to open up my AirPods and I'm going to connect with these. All right. So for you, again, you're not trying to be a professional broadcaster. For most of your conversations with your prospects or your clients, you can use a simple wired system like this, or even your AirPods. They work very, very effectively, and I highly recommend that. All right. So backup audio is key. Right? I hope I made that point. Right? So I'm ready with my backup system. So mistake number 5 is poor video quality. Right? So take a look at the video that's on your screen right now. Right? So it should be filling your screen because I'm not showing my screen or my desktop. All right. So I just want to show you a few things and mention a couple of tools that you might like. I use a quality video camera. I use what's called a Logitech C922 ProStream. I'll say that again. Logitech C922 ProStream camera. All right. Now, why not use the built-in camera that's right here? Right? Why wouldn't I want to use this camera? It's not that it's bad quality, all right? But I'll tell you one of the problems, or there are lots of problems with this camera. Part of it is framing and distance. So if I have this computer where I can reach the keyboard, then what happens is that little camera is below my chin and it's too close, right? So it looks like this, right? So you don't want to be talking to people where your face is this close to the camera and it's filling the screen. It's just not normal. All right. So if we were having an actual meeting where you and I were having a conversation, this is more the normal distance. All right. So if you were sitting here, this is about how much I'd be able to see of you and how much you'd be able to see of me. All right, so the video quality has to be good, and framing and distance are key. So what I have in front of me is I have actually, it's an old television set that I have more modern televisions in my home, but this is a flat screen that's about 30 inches. All right, so I appreciate you can't see it. I'm describing it for you, and my camera is sitting on top of that screen, giving you this look. All right, so if you take a look at this particular image, the framing and the distance is key, right? So it's not an accident, for example, that there's only this much space above my head, right? And you see that all the time. You see people and you log on and it looks like this. And there's this big gap above them. That's framing. Framing doesn't look right. So you want to get the right distance and the right framing, right? And I check this before every conversation. Another thing that can happen is if I'm using this instead of this camera and I have a separate keyboard, is if my camera is attached to my computer and I'm typing some notes or touching my computer, well, now it's moving and you're going to get, let me wiggle my desk, right? You don't want that kind of effect, right? It distracts people. It looks weird and you don't want it to happen. Now you'll notice that what I have here is this is my real environment. This is not a picture on a green screen. I'll talk about that in a moment. So I actually prefer that, right? I like to be in my real environment, but it's been strategically laid out, all right? So I have, literally I have my books over here over my shoulder, right? So I have a picture of my grandmother. That little message says it can be done. Right, so I had a stack of books there before, and one of the books is called Believe. That's one of my favorite words. It's actually, I think, my wife's favorite word. So you got to believe, right? I like to convey that message, right? So I recently had a flood. My water heater's on the other side, just where those chairs are, and so my water heater blew. Actually, like on March 14th or 15th, right at the worst possible time. And instead of the water flowing out of that cabinet, that closet rather, into my backyard, it just seeped through and soaked my carpet in here, right? Nothing happens at a convenient time. So when my handyman and carpet person put the credenza back or the wall unit back, it's actually not quite far enough over this way. So better than that empty wall for now. I at least put those chairs there. So not ideal, right? If we weren't sequestered from the coronavirus pandemic, there would be a nice plant there already that I would have either gone out and purchased or had my plant person deliver and put in there. But that's what'll be there eventually. All right, but be conscious. The point is I'm aware of this environment. Okay, I'm aware of the environment and it's deliberate. All right, so distance and framing are very important. And backgrounds, I mentioned those. Right, I think your real office should be made to look presentable. That's preference, but you can also do video backgrounds. All right, so some of these services, Zoom and GoToWebinar, have that feature. You can choose a background, you can put a picture in. So I'll bring that image of Damien up again, and you can see that he has created this background. Now, what I'm not sure of is I don't know if it's digital or if he actually has something hanging behind him like you would see in a sports or a political press conference. So if you're going to use a digital background, it's much better if you use a green screen. All right, so a green screen normalizes a digital background. If you don't use the green screen, then what'll happen is as you move, it'll become sort of funky and it'll look like a bad animation, right? But take a look at what's on your screen right now. You go to Amazon and all I did was put in, green screen, and it came up packages, and there's a green screen which you would just hang on the bar behind you and then bring up your digital image, and it would keep it nice and clean. So when you move, it wouldn't look funky. But notice there's also a lighting package. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about lighting as well. While we're on the subject of great video, you also want to have really, really good lighting. So how do you get good lighting? Well, in my case, I'm very, very conscious of these things, obviously. And this is mistake number 6, by the way, if you're keeping track of the mistakes. Mistake number 5 was bad video. Mistake number 6 is bad lighting. It's an easy fix. This is so important, especially on your face. Remember, everything you say and do moves the needle on the trust dial, one direction or the other, right? So you can't build and maintain trust if your face, especially your eyes, are not 100% visible and clear. All right, so I sometimes wear glasses and I sometimes wear contact lenses. All right, so today I'm wearing my glasses. I made sure that they are clean. All right, a few minutes before this, I put my mic on, I taped it back here, I changed the batteries, and I made sure that my glasses were nice and clean, and I framed them on my face, and I deliberately have glasses where it's easy to see my eyes, not sort of skinny glasses, and definitely not photo gray lenses, not called photo gray anymore, but lenses that transition lenses from light to dark. Can't have that. Got to really be able to see your face and your eyes. I mean, you've heard that said before, like he's a shadowy character. So if you're in the shadows, that's a problem. Now for me, on a sunny day like this, I have windows all around and a glass door. So this is all natural light, all right? But I also have a light, a video light in the garage that I could bring in to create more light. All right, so I showed this to you a moment ago. Again, all you have to do is go to Amazon and type in, all right, so video lighting. I would do like packages, right? And something will come up. These things will come up. Lots of packages like that. There it is, the green screen packages. And look how cheap these things are. I mean, this whole photo studio package with all these lights and a carrying case and stands and a green screen, it's 120 bucks, and free shipping and free delivery for Prime, 139. I mean, there are lots of packages that would be plenty good. It's amazing how inexpensive these things are today. So you want to use these things and be conscious of it. Again, you're not trying to be a total pro, but the problem is, and I talked about this in the promotion for this, is you may think, well, you know, my clients are going to be forgiving because they understand I'm new to this. And I would agree. I think your clients will be more forgiving. It's your prospects I'm more worried about, right? So if you fumble with your tools, right, it creates a bad impression. Now, is it a fair characterization that if you fumble with your online meeting tools, that you'd also fumble with their money? All right. Do people make those kind of judgments? And the answer is yes, they do. Whether they should or shouldn't make those judgments, they do. I mean, you would probably make judgments about me, right? Right. So I have a 32-year track record of training financial advisors. I'm the highest paid trainer and coach in the industry. Advisors pay $60,000 on a year on a 4-year contract. Would you expect me to be articulate? Would you expect me to be inspirational? Would you expect me to have good content? Would you expect me to be able to deliver it through this system? All right, so I'm easily navigating between my tools. Right now, I'll show you something. I brought it up on my screen earlier, but I wanted to talk about it later. Now look at my screen and notice how I have set up my notes. Right? So some of this I'm actually communicating to you verbatim, right? So you might want to do that. You might want to have your notes up, right? So you could use your notes while you've got they're on the full screen on your end, you're on the full screen on their end, and you could have your notes up to help you flow. They could be talking points. They could actually be a script. It could be instructions. Notice I've got notes to myself. Share screen, Damien, bottom left. Right. So what that tells me is I'm going to share my screen, which I did. It's Damien. That's what I'm going to go for. I know that. And bottom left, well, that's where, and I showed this to you earlier. I'm just backtracking. Notice bottom left is where I click to bring up this big image. Right. So you would expect that somebody of, my caliber with my credentials and my experience with this, I'd be able to navigate these things well. Right. So just like you would make judgments of me, you can understand your clients will make some judgments, but they'll be more forgiving. Your prospects will make bigger judgments and they may not be forgiving at all. They may absolutely think, man, if this woman is fumbling with this technology, I can only imagine what she might be like with financial planning technology. So I appreciate you may not think it's fair, but they do make those judgments. All right, so we're just 5 minutes away from me answering your questions. Mistake number 7, distractions on their end. All right, so let me just first say you want to get your environment dialed in exactly the way you want it. All right, so I've eliminated everything from my desktop except what I need to communicate to you. All right, so I've got my water handy. It may be off screen, but my water is handy. All right, so before I started, I consumed a Hall's Mentho-Lyptus lozenge because it's really good for my throat, not to mention the fact that in the last couple of weeks, I've been broadcasting a lot, had a lot of, I've done a huge number of one-on-one meetings with CEOs of firms and financial advisors, and this is the 5th online presentation that I've broadcast in the last 10 days or 2 weeks. So I've got these things handy. I mentioned I've got my phone system, but here's something, my Ring doorbell, all right? So I made sure to turn my phone off. It has to be on because I'm going to access my Q&A with Michael in a few minutes, but I don't want it to ring during our meeting. And then my Ring doorbell, this is called a Ring chime, all right? So in my particular home, I have a long house and it's 2 stories, and I'm at the far end of the bottom floor, and my front door is at the top end of my 2nd story. When somebody rings the doorbell, I can't hear it, so I have the Ring doorbell installed. And I couldn't ask for better timing on this. I live really close to the ocean in San Diego, and sometimes helicopters and planes will fly by. So I'm going to walk over to my door, all right? I hope you can hear that. All right, so that's one of the reasons why I'm wireless. So I can literally stand up when I hear the initial sound of that. I can push my door shut. I can keep talking to you. In this case, it actually became part of the training, and I can shut that door. Now, if I wasn't giving a training on how to have an online meeting, I would have just kept speaking. I might have changed the screen. I might have flipped my video off and gone to eliminate that distraction. So that's a reality. Plane or helicopter is gone. I'm going to go back and open my door so I have a little fresh air. But that's because I have a lot of experience and I'm in command of my environment. So first of all, getting your environment square is important. I didn't just go to the Ring app and disarm this. I unplugged it. Whenever I do a meeting like this, I actually unplug it. And in this case, I can use it as a prop, right? So this is what you tell your prospects or clients. In order for you to have the best experience, let's take a few minutes and set up a good environment, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to have them eliminate their distractions. And you're just going to go through, and I'll give you what I think are at least some key things on the checklist, right? So you're just going to say, all right, so we agreed to be together for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it is. Is that your understanding of the meeting? Great. So obviously you'll have a better experience if you have fewer distractions. So let's create a good environment and eliminate, if possible, all of the distractions, right? Now, if you've already been doing some meetings like this, you know how many distractions there can be. You know, phones ring, they get text, they look at their phone, their doorbell rings, their dog goes in behind them and knocks something over, or comes in and jumps in their lap and barks. Babies are crying, spouses are interrupting, right? So it's your job to coach them so that they can have a better experience, right? So everything that I've already talked about. How should their camera be positioned, right? So where should they move their camera to? Or should they physically, if they're using their laptop camera, then you might have them physically move their laptop so the camera captures. Let's say you're having a conversation with a husband and wife. The camera might be at that end of the desk, all right? So look at it this way. If that's the end of the desk, you might have them position the camera so that my wife's name is Ann, so that you could have Ann and I sitting together so you could have a conversation with us. I've actually heard of advisors who send a care package, right? They will buy the right camera on a little tripod for their best clients, maybe all their clients. Maybe they would even send that to their prospects. They might have them send it back. They might pick it up later, but you want to make sure you have a really good environment so you can have preferably an interactive experience, all right? So what a lot of advisors do, and I think this is a mistake. Now notice how most of the time, right, I've been on the full screen. And if this was a one-on-one meeting, what it would look like is you would be big on my screen and I would be big on your screen, right? That's another reason why you don't want to do this, if at all possible, on a small computer, right? Because much better for you to be on my 30-inch screen than for you to be on my 15-inch screen, or even worse, for you to be on my 10 or 11-inch iPad, or this is a big screen for a phone. They've gotten bigger and bigger, but it's still, I think, 4 or 4.5 inches. This is definitely not how you want to run your meetings. All right, so you want to be careful about having the screen full and then turning off your camera and them turning off their camera, because now there's no sense of, oh, well, she can see what I'm doing. I can see what she's doing. She can see what I'm doing. In our world, we have a tool called the financial roadmap. So it's an interactive exercise that a financial advisor would take a prospect or a client through, a prospect to get hired in the first place, maybe an existing client if you were new to this. And the only reason I show you this is because what we wouldn't do is we wouldn't have it fill the screen and try and fill it in electronically on the screen. Instead, what we would do is we would send one of these in advance to the prospect. It would be sitting on their desktop in front of them, and you would be asking them the questions and instructing them to complete it. And that's what makes it interactive. So the more it can be interactive, the better, right? So the more that you're bringing up things on the screen and presenting, right? So they didn't show up for a presentation, right? So you did today. You showed up because you wanted me to teach you and give you information. If this were a one-on-one meeting, I would be asking you a lot more questions, doing a lot of listening, and taking appropriate notes and instructing you to do things to make it interactive. All right, so there you have it. Those are the 7 big mistakes and how to avoid those mistakes so that you can elevate for being maybe somebody with no experience or even somebody with a lot of experience. I'm sharing some of these same ideas with some of my friends who are great communicators, and I've had online meetings with them, and you would think they would know better, and they are making some of these same mistakes. So even pros make these mistakes. So if you want to come across like a pro, you want to make sure that you eliminate these 7 mistakes. All right, I promised you plenty of time for Q&A, so I'm going to pivot to Q&A now. While I'm transitioning to that, I'll just bring up my screen again and remind you that we are putting lots of free resources on this special page that's just for you, right? So they're there, and you can also, when you go to this page, it'll ask you if you want to be updated when new things are added, right? So next week, for example, next Wednesday at 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern, we're going to do an online training, free online training about goal setting in the COVID-19 world. Right, so how do you set goals or reset goals? How do you, there's short-term sort of survival goals, and then mid-term and long-term, how to really thrive and use this current situation to really elevate and add more ideal clients. All right, so what if the client doesn't have video camera capabilities? So yeah, Frank, that's a really good question. I would not try to have this meeting if they don't have video capabilities. So first of all, I'm a little skeptical that they don't, right? So if they have an iPad, which is not my preferred tool, but I think most people do have a video camera built in, I would delay the meeting. So the question is, would you rather do the meeting sooner in a bad environment, or would you rather do the meeting later in a good environment? And the answer to that question can be found in that famous saying, you never get a second chance to make a good first impression, right? So I would rather postpone the meeting and execute it with the right tools than have the meeting in a bad environment. So there are other things besides the video camera. Let's say that you execute that script that I just shared with you, which is, in order for you to have a good experience, let's set up the environment. And you have them position the camera, and you get everything in the right place. You might give them a little coaching on how to use the tools. All right, so what you should be seeing right now is me and your whole screen. So you've got you in a little box and me in a big box if this is a one-on-one or a 1 to 2 or 3 meeting or conversation. Then you might say, look, I understand that you're at home right now. You probably have more people in your house. You may not used to be at the house working, so let's talk about distractions. Right, so we agreed to be together for an hour. In order for you to have the best experience, it would make sense that that hour is uninterrupted. If you were in my office, I would have been able to eliminate all the distractions, which I've done in my office. So let's create the same for you. So let's talk about the potential distractions, right? So if nothing else, I might look over here, and my wife's office is on the other side of this door, and I might look over, and right now, she happens to be there, but what if she wasn't and I had the door open, right? Might say, yeah, my wife will probably come back, or somebody might come back and use that office. So your advice to me would be, go ahead and close that door now, right? And I would do that. I would get up and I would make sure that that door is closed. All right, what's another possible distraction? And you might just go through them, right? So now that that door is closed, what about dogs barking, babies crying, anything like that? Have you let everybody know that you're going to need to have privacy for the next hour so that they don't just wander in and interrupt you? Oh, you haven't done that? Well, why don't you let them know now? I'll wait while you do that. Right. So, and believe me, the needle is moving on the trust dial in the right direction because you are leading. You're leading them like a pro. And that's what leadership is. In our virtual training platform, we have 4 curriculums of core content. There's client acquisition, client service, leadership, and time management. right? So most financial advisors haven't had much leadership training. They make suggestions instead of giving advice, all right? So you're taking a leadership role to help them have a good experience. You're not saying, hey, I don't want to be interrupted, so fix this for me. You're saying in order for you to have the best experience, right? So you lead them through those things. So what about the doorbell, right? I mean, in these days, I mean, how many times a day does Amazon come to your house dropping off a package, right? So I mean, they say, yeah, I've got one of those chime systems. I have one of those Ring doorbell systems. So can you silence that? Go ahead and silence your phone. Put it on airplane mode or do not disturb. Unplug your Ring chime. So whatever it would take to help them have a great experience is what you want to do. Better to delay the meeting than try to force a meeting into a bad environment. And I think a video camera is paramount. All right. So, especially with a prospect, I believe it's true with a client. And if you have to actually buy and send them a good video camera, right, that'll actually move the needle on the trust dial in the right direction. You know, this meeting is so important. Let's go online. You could do this and you could take them to Amazon and you could have them. They're probably thinking, yeah, I really need to get, you know, a good camera. So some type of a, yeah, you might direct them right to Logitech. All right, so Logitech webcam, I mentioned it earlier to you. There are, now these are ads that are coming up. So this is the webcam I recommended earlier, right? So hey man, 260 bucks, all right, a bargain for quality video. All right, you notice it's got the lights on it there as well. And I've been glancing up at that periodically because I always want to make sure and confirm that the video is still broadcasting. When these lights are on, it means the video is broadcasting. If they were to be off, it would mean that they're off. By the same token, I might want to click them off and I can see that I clicked the right area on the GoToWebinar control panel. And when the lights went out, I know that it worked. All right, because the last thing I want to have happen is I click it off. It doesn't go off. The camera's still on. I think it's off, and I reach back and scratch my butt or something. All right, so or blow my nose or do something that I don't want you to see. Right, I need to be in command that my controls are not only working, but that they're that the camera is receiving that message. All right, so Ray, what tool do you use to have your script in front of you? You can use anything, Ray. All right, so I'll bring it back up. This just happens to be Apple Notepad, right? It could be a Word document. It could be a Pages document. It could be anything. All right, so I took all my notes about this. This is the, if I spread this out, actually it's not gonna do that, but I just have a bunch of things, all right? So these are my notes for the webinar on how to turn coronavirus lemons into lemonade. Notice I've actually narrowed it, right? So I've narrowed it so that it's there. Now, if you were to, now that you know I'm using some notes, you might look closely and you might be able to see my eyes move from left to right as I read, right? But because I've narrowed it, right? So I'll go back to, I read this verbatim, right? I've got the description of the meeting and then some ideas. That's the bio that was posted in the chat box. And this is where I started. And I put it right about there. You're exactly who the world needs right now. Thank you for your courage and your leadership at such a crucial time in world history. Your clients need you. Your prospects need you. Your friends need you. And of course, your family needs you, right? And then notice I'm using my mouse and I'm just scrolling. I'm advancing my own teleprompter, right? And you have to be, you got to be practiced with this. So you might just have some talking points there. But notice I'm showing you this. All right, so I've got my desktop where I'm sharing my desktop. You want to be careful with that. If you don't have a lot of experience, you might sort of show that by accident. All right, and you may not want them to see that. So you want to make sure that you would you would minimize this and then click on share your screen in order to do that. Now notice the difference if I have this wide. If I do this, now if you were to watch my eyes, you would definitely see my eyes move, right? Now if I say, you're exactly who the world needs right now. Thank you for your courage and your leadership at such a crucial time in world history. Notice just one line because now it's this wide instead of this wide. but this is a little bit more advanced. All right. So, and I'm certainly not suggesting that, I believe this is a time to have conversations online. All right. So I'm not recommending that you do presentations. Right. I do not believe that this is a time to be selling. Right. So notice how I'm setting up a lot of free resources. One of those resources is actually a script, client and prospect communications during the coronavirus pandemic. One of them is a script, the easiest call that you'll ever make. And what makes the call easy is you're calling people to be helpful. All right. Now, it may get to the point where you've got to do sort of business development through online meetings. But right now, you're trying to maximize, I know this sounds crazy, the pandemic opportunity to fill your pipeline with a lot of people who like and trust you. This is the time to be helping, not selling. All right. So be very careful about thinking, oh, I'm going to be making annuity presentations or some kind of retirement plan presentations or financial planning presentations. I just suspect it's not going to come across very well right now when health is everybody's big concern. And let's be real, health is more important than money. All right, so I'll just say it again. You want to make sure that you are prioritizing the kind of communication that you have, and that you're contacting people to be helpful, and that you're having conversations. So it looks much more like this, all right, than it does, like this. You notice I didn't have any slides today, right? I didn't just sort of narrate a slide deck. I'm mostly just talking to you, all right, sharing some ideas to be helpful at no charge, giving you direction to other complementary things that are valuable, right? So if you're talking to someone who's really concerned about their health, and maybe they're getting too much information from the news, you might want to send them this PDF so that they get their information, their facts, directly from a credible source like the Mayo Clinic. Right? So if you're talking to a business owner and they're concerned about paying their bills and surviving and making payroll, you might want to send them this PDF, which is from the Chamber of Commerce, about how they would access coronavirus emergency loans, small business guide and checklist. So this is a time to be helping, not selling, right? Fill your pipeline full and be helping. Now, that being said, you might find, I'm not going to be, I like to do business, but there are people who then go to my free information, and then all the way down at the bottom, all right, there is a way that you can access and find out more about our membership site, the Advisor Roadmap Virtual Training Platform. And we have people who've been availing themselves of these free resources, going to that site and becoming members, all right? But our focus is on helping. So if you are helping someone, and you're having a conversation and the door opens, maybe they ask you a question like, I really am thinking I should have had a better financial plan. I've got a really good investment person, but I'd really like to have more of a plan. I'm feeling a little stressed about my cash reserves. I'm feeling a little stressed about if my income gets interrupted. If the door opens to have a conversation, then you might say, hey, the purpose of this call was just to check in and see how you're doing. I did not intend to turn this into some type of a sales call. Right? If you have some questions, though, I'm happy to answer them. Would you like to pivot and have a conversation about creating a better financial plan for the future? Right? And that's essentially what happened to this woman, why you want to watch this video, because her financial advisor left an opening for someone else's financial advisor to contact her just to be helpful. And in the time her financial advisor had called 0 times, another financial advisor had called 3 times, and she's already decided she's firing her current financial advisor and moving, and neither of them know it yet. Right? Her current financial advisor doesn't know that she's already been fired, and her new financial advisor doesn't already know that he has a new client coming. Right? So you want to be the person who's really stirring the pot, and your online conversations can just help to that end. So you're helping, you're not selling. If the door opens, fine, but don't push it open. Don't let your fear about needing money come across when you're talking to especially your prospects and your clients. All right, let me check back in and see what other questions we have. All right, it looks like those are all the questions. I'll do sort of a last call for questions if you have any others. Yep, nope. All right. So again, we do it this way. Now there is a dashboard on the system where you could do chat. So I could look at the questions that are coming in, but many of the questions we know from experience will be technical questions. All right. So we know that we're broadcasting. We know the audio is working. We know the video is working, but you might not be as good receiving these things as we are at broadcasting them. So I've got a team member who makes sure that the technical questions get squared away, and then I don't have to look through and see all the tech questions. I can just see the questions that are meant for me to answer. All right, so those are all the questions. As I mentioned earlier, you're going to get a link to this actual broadcast. For whatever reason, when we did this broadcast last week, well, actually we had a bigger group. So we had a larger group and we had lots of questions. So you'll notice it was 2 hours and 11 minutes, 57 minutes to go through the content, and the rest was Q&A. So what is that, an hour and 14 or 15 minutes of Q&A. So you might find listening to the questions that other advisors asked and the answers, you might find that valuable. So once again, we just want to thank our partner, Insurance WebX. They bring you lots of great things of value. I'm just one of many things that they're bringing you to help you be more successful and not only survive the current situation, but come out the other side where you can actually thrive and truly build an ideal business with ideal clients so you live your ideal life. It's my pleasure to be with you today, and I hope that you get value from this and these other free resources. All right, hang in there, be safe, be healthy, be well, and keep taking care of your clients and your prospects. Make it a great day.